You don't wanna never count yourself out, make it a great one. Just be sure to leave out the doubt, time to wake up.
All right, so your organization, you're halfway through the year, we're halfway through the year, and we've got to ask the question of what's important. Like, where are we going? As a leadership team, we're discussing right now how your leadership team get back on track for the next 6 months because from what we understand, we're probably off a little bit with our goals, with where we're going. And so today we're talking about that, but we got to ask first, like start there at the starting point of why do we get off track in the first place? Like what's the tendency? What's the things that get us off track, right?
Well, I hope it's some good things. Actually, I hope
Yeah.
I hope there's more growth than you anticipated. There were some market trends that happened. There were some, some new customer acquisitions that happened, and it just took you further than you planned.
Right.
And then there's the other. There could just be, there were constraints you didn't see coming. There were barriers. There were internal or external trends that something that happened that set you back. So it's important. There's a lot at stake. So we're halfway through the year. It matters. We must take time to assess. So how do we do that? What's it mean to assess, and how do we move forward?
Yeah, I think you kind of have to split this up into two parts, which is you got to figure out how to assess and pivot. There's flexibility to it. And then the second part is really just figuring out what is the true focus and where or how are you going to get it done, the path, right? Yeah. So those are the two parts that I think we got to talk about. And you bring up a great point. Sometimes we're off track on the things that we have these long visions on, not for bad reasons, good reasons. And sometimes it's just our human tendency. We just get off track, and we have organizations made up of people, right? And with those people, we don't have the ability to be robotic in how we do this. How do we stay on track for those big goals, those big things that we're trying to achieve? So great point in that. I think we got to ask 3 questions. And these 3 questions are vague enough to where we got to dive into them, right? So what's the target? Mm-hmm. Like what is the target? Is it still the same? Is it still relevant? Where are we now, right?
Yep,
so where are
state.
we? Yep, current state. And then what's the focus? Like what do we really think is the focus?
Yeah.
All right. So if we dive into those, here's what we have for you though. As you're listening in on this, think about these categories of your business that you have to assess. It can't just be let's just assess, willy-nilly, just kind of throwing things out there. Let's actually derive it from certain portions of your business. So we have financials, marketing and sales, operations, and HR. These are your more internal aspects of your business.
Right.
Those are broad categories. Most of the things that you can think of within your business are going to fall into one of those categories, okay? And some people will ask, like, well, what about like learning and, the team dynamic piece, the culture piece? Well, that should filter into the HR piece. If it doesn't, we're doing something wrong there.
Right.
All right, and then there's the external components of your company. You got your supply chain, you got your competitive landscape, your economy, your politics, all these things. We should reassess mid-year and say, what is still true of when we made these plans? What is still true today? And what do we foresee it being as we move forward? These components will help you do that. And let's just repeat them one more time. All right, so internally, it's financials, it's marketing and sales, it's operations, it's HR, right?
Yep.
Externally, it's supply chain, competitive landscape, economy, and then politics, right? So as we dive into these 3 questions, I think it's, for you guys, just listen in on and use that as how does it apply to what these 3 questions are.
Right.
So first question.
Yeah, so the first question is what is our target?
Yeah.
And that in itself is a very broad question. So when you're working with organizations, when you're working with businesses and leaders, and you ask them, what is your target? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I think of it in two buckets. I think of it as this broad vision. We call it the always vision.
I like that. The always vision.
We're always moving towards this.
Okay.
And I'll just use an example. I mean, we use Toyota as an example, and we use many other organizations, but Toyota's a great one. Their always vision is that they want to be the most respected car company in America. Okay, that's a great vision that we call it always too, because even if you get there, you got to stay on top.
Right. You're done and never finished.
You're done and never finished. That's right. So when we're in rooms, when we're facilitating for, this kind of discussion of what's the target, we'll show a picture of like a Toyota Camry, right? And we'll say, what do you think of when you see this? And without a doubt, 9 times out of 10, we're going to have somebody in the room, probably a handful of people, say reliability, trust, right? And this is good because it gets to our point, which is your always vision has to be, everything you do as an organization has to be attached to that always vision.
Right.
So now you have the always vision, that's what you're always moving towards, and you have the horizon vision, which is what's on the horizon, and is it leading to our always vision? So when we think about that, I tend to think about like BHAGs, Jim Collins, big, hairy, audacious goals. Like these are the things that we're going to do that are going to lead to that vision.
Right.
So some goals that are attached with that. I don't know. Let's lean into that.
Yeah, you could think about objectives or initiatives or projects, and these both could be internal and or external.
Right.
But these are things that are leading you to your always vision. And so it's a really good time. One, are we still about what we say we're about?
Yeah,
that's the
target,
always vision, right?
Target,
and then the things that we're doing, the BHAGs, these projects, initiatives, objectives, the horizon vision.
Yep.
Are they aligned with who we want to be and where we want to go?
Where we want to go.
And so we got to really begin to, this is when you're talking about assessing and where are we on our target, this is what you're really referencing, getting a better eye on those things, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And here's I don't know, it's kind of comical in some ways, is when you ask people what's on the horizon, like what are the big things you're working on? We have no problem most of the time, and I'll put myself in this bucket, saying, "Oh, we're implementing this new software that's going to change how we do our operations. Oh, we're hiring 10 more people because we've grown as a company, and we foresee that these 2 positions are going to help in this, or we're gonna get our revenue up 10, 20% next year." And then you ask them, why? Why do you want to do that? That's the question that gets a little harder to answer. Well, because we want to grow. Well, why do you want to grow? So there's this underlining purpose that leads to that always vision. And so why do we ask this question of what's the target? Because sometimes we get off target by just doing these things that lead to, they're great, they're awesome, but we don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
Right?
And it really gives you a good opportunity to say, is this the direction we want to continue? Is this direction still viable?
Yeah.
In where we're going and who we want to be in the current market that we're doing business in. So,
exactly.
Which really lends itself then to the second question of, well, now that we're taking time to re-clarify, what is our target?
Yep.
And now we get to ask current state questions. Where are we? On that target?
Yeah, where are we? Just exactly that of what have we gotten? What have we achieved this year? What are we proud of? Where are the wins? Where's the fails? What are the things that are stopping us? What's the obstacles that are keeping us from some of those on the horizon type of vision pieces, the big goals in that? We got to ask those questions. We got to assess.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk often about the businesses, organizations, companies. They're made up of people,
right?
And people are very relational. We're very adaptive. We're flexible. We're not mechanical as much as we try to be. And we try to be very predictive, and predictable, and like we can write the script and somehow it's going to happen the way we want it to happen. Except it doesn't.
Yep.
Because the economy is made up of people, the marketplace is made up of people.
That's right.
Your customers are people. Everything changes, and I love this paradigm that I try to keep near, and it's dear to me. New information gives me permission to make new decisions. So I'm not going to complete a goal so I can say I completed the goal.
Right. Flexibility, right?
You have to be flexible.
Yeah.
What a great opportunity to get the stakeholders in the room.
Yeah.
And say these were our targets. Where are we on the target, and are they still viable?
Right.
Is it still, because maybe you've learned something that you didn't first see coming, but it's healthier, it's better, it's investable.
Yeah.
And what a great time to pivot and invest or put more gasoline on that fire to grow and go in that direction.
Yeah, exactly. And these questions that we just kind of stated of like, where are we? What's the obstacles? What's the wins? What are we proud of? What are we not proud of? All these questions that help assess where we are. Those are, I think that oftentimes we think, I don't have time for this, especially in the peak seasons. I don't have time for this. How are we going to reassess mid-year when this is the busiest time of the year, right? And maybe it's not for you. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I'm sure you thought, like, where am I going to get the time for this? I think that we have to be honest with ourselves. I think there was a pivotal moment for me like a couple years ago where busyness was almost worn as a badge of honor. It's like I can be involved in 1,000 things, but we have to be honest with what do we need to say no to actually create time. Mm-hmm. And when you think about it, if you take all the hours in a week and you divvy those up and do that for your leadership team, right? Like all of your leadership team, have them divvy up their hours and say, like, where is it actually going? Where's your time going? You're going to have to pick on that schedule. You're going to have to say, I've got to say no to a few different things to make time for this because this is important.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a million thoughts and try not to go too far in them. When you're worth investing in, if you thought your business was worth investing in when you started it, isn't it still worth investing in? And so there has to be a time separation where you're working in the business and on the business. You're wanting to stay a subject matter expert. You're wanting to understand where the trend is going, where the market is going, what your customers are asking for, and how do you keep that competitive advantage. But you're not doing it just for profit alone. I think profit matters. Yeah. Profit's very important.
Profit matters.
Profit matters.
Yeah.
But there's life in it. And so sustaining a business doesn't give life. Growing a successful, healthy business does.
Yeah.
And so for you to find life, it is worth taking time to invest in yourself, to invest in your people, to invest in your organization, and just come up for a quick breath of air and say, where are we?
Yeah.
How's it working? Where's it going?
Yeah, that's all right. And you have 4 questions that actually help with this. Let's go over those 4 questions real quick.
Yeah, I think when we talk about assessments, listen, we can make it as simple or complicated as we want.
Yeah.
But one of the ways that you can just get a long list and then dial it down quickly to a short list is to get the right people in the room, and you can use it on any project, initiative, or goal that you would want. And the first question is, over the last 6 months, what would we say is working?
Right.
That needs to be optimized, or you want to optimize it because it is working.
Yep.
And then the last 3, don't be so worried about the precision. Do we have it in the right bucket? It's just to get it on the list, and you can work with it later. But the next question could be, what's confusing over in the past 6 months? What has been confusing for the team, or for you as a project leader or a team leader?
Yeah.
Someone in marketing or in your sales or internal, external. Anyway, what's been confusing
and
that needs to be clarified?
Got to dive into that one. You take some time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to understand what they're saying.
Yeah.
So what's confusing that needs to be clarified, and then the last 2. Well, what's missing?
Yeah.
What would we say over the last 6 months? If we had this, it would have been better. If we had this, it would have been more successful. If we had this, it would have gone faster.
Yeah.
What's missing that needs to be added? And then the last is what's wrong? And this could create some conflict, but listen, you have to face it. What's wrong that needs corrected? It could be behavior, it could be disciplines, it could be some culture issues, could be some supply chain issues, internal, external.
Right, yep.
If you would boil all of those down to what's the one, that if we paid attention to this, it would make everything else better.
Yeah, pick as little as you can to focus on.
Yeah.
Because we know we get too much. And that leads us into our third question. So what's the target? Basically, what's the target? Where are we, the current state? And then what's the focus? What's the focus? So this is where we start to take all that stuff that we are dumping out of our heads as a team, and then we say, let's focus down and pick one.
Right.
All right?
Right. Goals matter.
Yeah.
Goals drive us. I forget who said it. It's not mine. So someone smarter, greater out there said this. Decisions get you started. Discipline helps you finish.
Yeah.
And so goals matter.
Yeah.
And it does.
Starting point. Yeah.
It is a starting point.
Yep.
And we have to realize that over the first 6 months, they've changed. And I hope for good reasons. I hope it's just been successful and growth.
So much success. Yes.
Yes. But if you don't redefine those goals, you're telling your organization, you're telling your business goals don't matter. We're just,
we're rigid. We're just going to stay on track.
Yeah.
Or forget about them, right?
Absolutely. So when you redefine them.
Yeah, it can't be on the extremes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you got to balance it.
When you redefine them, what are you doing? You're bringing synergy back to a team. You're bringing unity, communication, clarity, and you get to start strong again for your next half of the year. They matter when you bring in focus.
Yeah, and the focus piece, I think again, we talked about all those areas of your business. You can't pull and push the levers the same on every area of your business.
Right.
Sometimes, practically speaking, sometimes your financials are they're rolling great. Don't touch them. Then leave that aside. You don't need to try to do something to enhance it if it's going very well and you foresee it to finish well for the year.
I think that's an important fact.
Yeah.
You don't have to put your hands on everything and adjust everything.
Yes, exactly. And I think our human brains kind of sometimes get to that point where we're like, well, if we did it for this department, we need to do it for this department. Not necessarily true. And actually, when you don't, it should speak to your team to say, thank you for rolling and operating the way we think it should be. Thank you for doing it in such a good way. It should be a compliment to them.
That's right.
Right? But then when there's these things that are like, okay, say operationally, again, we're on what's the focus. We got to choose these things. So how do you do that? You got to assess. All right, well, operationally, we still haven't hired those people we said we were. We didn't go to all the recruiting events that we said we were to bring in those people. Okay, we got to put some gasoline on this fire and get it rolling for the next 6 months. So you have to assess by comparing a little bit inside your organization and outside. Externally, okay, we have an election coming up. How's that going to affect our business?
Right.
Do we need to add some goals to be able to get to our horizon vision of adding 20% of revenue this year, to be able to growing 30% of our employees? Okay, that's a big, hairy, audacious goal of how we're going to do that. Yeah. Do we need to put some gasoline on this fire to help us get there? Right? Do we need to push the pedal down a little bit to get there in this area? The team has to speak into it. At the end of the day, I think we're asked a lot of times of like, how do I know? How do I know I need to make this decision over this decision?
Right.
The truth of the matter is that you can only take what you can and assess it. Right? And so the focus is picking. That's it. It's a discipline of picking. You say, we got to do all 6 of these things. No, let's do 3. Let's do 2. Let's do 1.
Absolutely.
Right?
You have to know the capacity of your team. You know, where are they at in their capacity?
Yeah.
How much load are you going to put on them? A personal experience of mine in the past, we decided to onboard about 4 people.
At the same time?
At the same time, which is, that's okay in itself.
Sure, it can be, yeah.
But we decided to do it in the peak season of where a third of our revenue comes in.
Perfect.
A third of our revenue comes in within a couple of month time period.
Yeah.
And on top of an already then full capacity, high load season, we bring in 4 new people to onboard.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't the best,
right?
But
well, you guys focused, but you focused it with timing at the wrong time.
It put an extra load on some folks that it's something that we wouldn't want to repeat often. So it really does matter to understand not just what you're coming out of, but what you're walking into.
All right, so just to capture this, we're saying, hey, at the end of it, we got to look at it. We're mid-year. What are we going to do with the next 6 months, right? And we said, let's focus on these 3 areas. Ask yourself, what's the target? The vision, the things that we're driving towards, those horizon type of goals. Where are we? What's the current state? And then what's the focus? We got to pick. And we know whatever we pick, we're going to have to boil it down because it's going to be too much.
Yeah.
Because we take on too much. All right. So the next part, we're going to go into and actually talk about what's the path to get there. So you picked all this stuff. Now, how are you going to get there? So we'll talk about that.
goals never die. Souls gotta fly high. I'm taking off to the sky. And with every day that goes by, I'm making sure that it counts. It don't matter what's the amount, you only get now.